Welcome to Habeas Treasurous, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins-Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'll continue my breakdown of The Lion's Share Box and discuss why I think singer-songwriter sensation Dolly Parton is a missing piece of the puzzle. Let's begin! On a previous video, I discussed why I think the strange line in chapter 20 about the author clinging to some old perspectives as ferociously as if I were a lion atop a mountain of decaying catnip was a potential clue leading to Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Basically, my idea was if you decayed the word catnip by removing letters from each side, you were left with TN in the middle, which is the abbreviation for Tennessee. And if you combine this with the word clinging and the Smoky Quartz treasure item that's highlighted in the same chapter, you could plausibly arrive at the Clingman's Dome observation point in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Okay, so at this point, I felt pretty good about this logic, but I wanted to test it to see if it would hold up with other clues in the book. Basically, the question I asked myself was, could I find other supporting information in the book that would confirm Eastern Tennessee as a possible lion's share location? So, I put myself in JCB's shoes and asked, if I was going to hide the treasure in Eastern Tennessee, which places or people would I most likely reference as clues? The obvious answer is Dolly Parton, and here's why. Dolly grew up in Sevierville, Tennessee, and her amusement park, Dollywood, is located in Pigeon Forge, which is just west of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Many people who visit the park stay in Pigeon Forge. She is best known for her music career, but also is an extremely successful actor who's performed in a number of movies, including the 1980s classic 9 to 5. And, like a modern-day Andrew Carnegie, Dolly has contributed more than almost anyone else to advancing literacy around the world. She is the founder of the Imagination Library, a program that gifts a free book every month to any child from the time they were born until they turn 5 and head off to kindergarten. Her foundation has donated over 300 million books since it began in 1995. Pretty incredible, and one of the reasons why I think she's definitely on brand with the treasure hunt. The other reason I think Dolly could be a clue is that she is also well known for her positive outlook on life and her witty quotes. Here are just a few of my favorites. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain. If I see someone without a smile, I give them mine. And if you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. These quotes reminded me so much of the ones that Jon leads off each chapter with that I started wondering why he didn't include any of them in his book. And then it hit me. Maybe the reason he didn't include them was because he didn't want to give away a clue so directly. For instance, let's take a look at the part of the story in chapter 20 that follows shortly after the mention of the decaying catnip. Jon is discussing the first time he learned that his birthstone was garnet. He writes, "As I really loved rocks, I was thrilled to see what my birthstone might be. But when I looked at my birth month in the chart, I stared in horror. January's gemstone was that very same red rock that was in our asphalt. My friend's birthstone was an emerald. My father's and sister's stones were rubies. My mother's birthstone was an amethyst. Even my baby brother had a beautiful aquamarine. All I got was pavement." Jon then goes on to explain how eventually he was able to change his perspective about garnet when he realized that the beautiful green savorite gem that's in the treasure is also a type of garnet. This change of perspective sounds a lot like the famous Dolly quote I mentioned earlier. If you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. Now maybe I'm making too much out of this, but it would be a pretty clever way to incorporate the essence of a Dolly quote in the story without actually calling out Dolly Parton directly. And it turns out that JCB and Dolly Parton's birthdays, get this, are only a day apart in January. Go figure. So, a story in the treasure book that mentions their shared birthstone garnet is another clever way to make a possible connection. But I know what you must be thinking to yourself. Yo, HT, I'm not convinced. You got anything else? Great question. How about this image in chapter 20 that's sandwiched between the catnip clue and the story about the birthstones? It's the painting called Mouth of Flower by Octavio Ocampo. The author included this image in the book even though it isn't a part of the treasure. In my opinion, this likely makes it a clue. Why go out of your way to include something that on its surface doesn't directly connect to anything or anyone associated with the treasure? Well, a couple of things stand out to me in this Ocampo painting. First is the fact that the artist has cleverly made the flower look like a beautiful woman's face. And the second is that the nose of the woman is represented by a moth or a butterfly. And again, in the context of Dolly Parton, this could make a good deal of sense. For instance, Dolly Parton is famous for her makeup routine. Take a moment to read this funny quote. "The only way I would be caught without makeup is if my radio fell in the bathtub while I was taking a bath and electrocuted me, and I was in between makeup at home. I hope my husband would slap a little lipstick on me before he took me to the morgue." Now let's take another look at the Ocampo image. Is JCB trying to draw a Dolly connection here? I think so, and the moth butterfly nose solidifies it for me. Dolly Parton is famous for a lifelong association with butterflies. It's become a core part of her image. Here's an excerpt from a 2024 article in Hello magazine where Dolly explains why butterflies are important to her. She said, and I quote, "If I have to get a scar for any reason, I never can get rid of that purple look. So I thought, well, I'm going to decorate these with some flowers or little butterflies." Parton also explained the significance and sentimental importance of butterflies in her life, explaining, quote, "I used to chase butterflies off into the woods and get lost. Mom would get mad and have to come and find me." She also mentioned, and I quote, "One of my big songs, a #1 hit I wrote 50 years ago was Love is Like a Butterfly. Through the years, it's been my emblem, and even my theme park Dollywood, the W part is a butterfly." So I think it's possible that JCB picked the Ocampo painting, Mouth of Flower, as sort of an homage to Dolly Parton, and told the pavement garnet story to draw additional attention to Dolly's quote about shifting perspectives and her January birthday. At this point, I began to feel like some things were really starting to line up with Eastern Tennessee, so I decided to see if I could make any more connections in the treasure book to Dolly Parton. And that's where things got really interesting. I've noticed in my year-plus reading and rereading the treasure book that important themes that may be clues seem to repeat themselves in multiple chapters. For instance, in my last video, I discussed how I think JCB is making a Valentine's Day reference in Chapter 8 when he lists out all the holidays that he likes to celebrate, and then later in Chapter 21, he describes the precursor to Valentine's Day, a holiday called Lupercalia, with the goat sacrifices and fertility rituals of the ancient Greeks. Now, if this isn't sounding familiar to you, don't worry. I encourage you to watch that video about the potential clues I found in the children's book, Our Unbreakable Thread. Anyway, I believe that if Dolly Parton is a key clue to be found in the treasure book, that we should be able to find references to her in another chapter in the book. And I think that chapter could be Chapter 6, Rubies to Wear. The chapter's theme is about inspiration and how rubies have been a source of inspiration for many cultures. In discussing why rubies are so valuable, the author writes the following. "Today, rubies are in high demand, and quality rubies are scarcer than ever before. These two factors have made rubies the most expensive gems by size in the world. The ruby in our ring shown above has a deep, rich red color known as pigeon's blood. The pigeon's blood color is the most sought by collectors." Here I think it's possible that by highlighting the pigeon's blood color of the ruby, that JCB is making a reference to the town of Pigeons Forge, Tennessee, where Dollywood is located. Okay, but what else? The next story that I found interesting in Chapter 6 was the one Jon tells about being inspired to reach out to jewelry artist Angie Marie to design some custom jewelry. I think this is notable because Jon writes, "When I reached out to Angie to ask if she'd make an original piece of jewelry featuring rubies for our treasure, she enthusiastically agreed. Angie has an infectious energy. She's the type of person who uplifts simply through the vivaciousness of her voice. We brainstormed some initial ideas together, and within a couple of weeks, Angie sent me some striking hand-drawn sketches to consider. The final design she created for these earrings was true art." I believe that these earrings are the only treasure item that Jon had a hand in designing himself, and therefore are likely an important clue. It seems like Jon had an idea in mind that fit into his treasure plans when he reached out to the designer. And it sounds like that plan involved at least two things: rubies and wings. So how does that tie into Dolly Parton? Well, In my research, I discovered that Dolly Parton played the lead role in a network TV Christmas movie called Unlikely Angel back in 1996. Her character's name, get this, was Ruby Diamond. In the movie, her character is a bar singer who leads a questionable life. One night, after leaving the bar, she's killed in a car accident after she swerves to miss a deer that's standing in the middle of the road. The next scene is Dolly getting refused access to heaven by St. Peter because of her questionable life choices that actually don't seem so questionable by today's standards. However, St. Peter is willing to give her one more chance to earn her angel wings because of the selfless act of swerving to miss the deer at the end of her life. So he sends Dolly, aka Ruby Diamond, back down to Earth to act as a troubled family's nanny for a week. She has until 12 o'clock Christmas Eve to help straighten this family out in order to earn her angel wings and get into heaven. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Yo, HT, a TV movie connection from 1996? Are you for real? Great question. Yes, I am for real, and here's why. In addition to the name Ruby Diamond and the angel wing custom earrings being pretty solid ties to the Dolly Parton movie Unlikely Angel, you also have the passage in the treasure book calling out that, quote, she is the type of person who uplifts simply through the vivaciousness of her voice. Kind of like an angel uplifting souls to heaven through singing, just like what Dolly, aka Ruby Diamond, did in the movie. Also, on the next page in the treasure book, JCB mentions meeting the other jewelry designer. He writes, Lauren Harrell Godfrey also draws inspiration from her African heritage, in particular from the African tradition of vividly colorful textiles. Her gemstone settings, the spectrum of colors she uses, and her designs are all exceptional. The phrase vividly colorful textiles and spectrum of colors reminded me of the album and song Coat of Many Colors that Dolly Parton released in 1971. This song was a big hit and is synonymous with Dolly. She even wrote her own children's book with this title that she sends to kids who sign up for her imagination library. The children's book was published, get this, 1996, the same year as the movie Unlikely Angel. It all could just be a big coincidence. But I really think that JCB could be using Chapter 6, Rubies to Wear, as an homage to Dolly Parton and potentially pointing us to Eastern Tennessee. After all, like Andrew Carnegie, Dolly has made a lifetime commitment to improving literacy through her book giving. And like JCB, she's a singer-songwriter who has also authored a children's book. And just like the treasure book itself, she's full of witty, thought-provoking quotes. There's lots of similarities, and Dolly is definitely on brand for There's Treasure Inside. If any of this is right, and Dolly Parton is an inspiration for the hunt, then I think it's fitting that we would find clues connecting her to the chapter titled Inspiration is Welcome. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. I hope you found it interesting and that it helps you with your hunt.